Welcome back to 52 Lockup. I am your Apple Teen Cadma of Bitten Apple TV. 52 Lockup is a series I started talking about one of my biggest passions, true crime. A new episode on every Cadmaniac Monday for 52 Mondays, 52 Crimes. Hope you guys enjoy. Be sure to like, leave some feedback, subscribe. Of course, you guys know the usual. We're not new to YouTube. And of course, as always, viewer discretion is always advised. So today's episode, we're going to be dealing with Bigfoot. Yes, I did say Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the abominable snowman, the Yeti, and not the products. We're not here to discuss your beliefs or non-beliefs of Bigfoot. So, for those who are believers and non-believers, please do not fight in the comment section. This has nothing to do with beliefs. But this certainly is Bigfoot's fault. I'm a fan of emotionally intelligent discussions and providing, what you're using to support your beliefs or why you believe the way that you believe. And of course, always an open-minded reciprocation in regards to a conversation. So I'm completely fans of that. Do that. Please do not bash each other. Like, that's stupid. I don't want to say it. But anyways, let's travel down to Oklahoma, where we meet 53-year-old Larry Sanders and his friend Jimmy Knighten. Larry was born in February of 1969 in Oklahoma. Larry Sanders spent much of his life kind of veering off the straight path, right? He would frequently get into trouble with the law over drugs in particular, and according to the Oklahoman reports, there were even 2 outstanding warrants related to unpaid fines in 2 drug-related cases. He was placed on basically a 5-year probation in 2019 because he brought methamphetamine to jail after being arrested for public intoxication. He did marry at some point. I couldn't find the wife's name, and I couldn't figure out who the daughter's name is, but you'll see why the daughter's important later. So now let's discuss Jimmy for a little bit now, right? Jimmy Glenn Knighten was born on April 15th, 1970 in Allen, Oklahoma to parents Della Knighten as well as Glenn Knighten. He had a knack and a passion for working with cars that even after he graduated from Allen High School, he went on to become a self-employed at a frame and body shop for up to 15 years. Jimmy had a love for hiking and being in the outdoors. That was one of his biggest passions outside of that. His favorite hobbies included fishing, hunting, riding 4-wheelers, and most of all, big fan of beer, especially drinking it around the big bonfire, right? That's what he loved. He was known for his consistent kindness. Friends and family would say there wasn't a person, not even a stranger, he wouldn't just give the shirt off his back for. He would eventually meet his wife, Stacy Kelly. They would have their children, their daughters, Kristen Knighten, Kimberly Knighten, and their sons, Aaron and Braden Knighten. Unfortunately, their marriage would not fully work out, but after 20 years, they did divorce, but they still remained extremely close to each other. Over the years, Larry and Jimmy would become friends, and their kids would begin dating, eventually developing into what would seem like it was going to become a very serious relationship. However, Larry still struggled with his drinking as well as taking methamphetamine, which is a stimulant, right? Meth rapidly increases the known happy hormone dopamine, right? For the brain to stimulate pleasure. Now, dopamine is known for its notable involvement in the brain's reward system, right? This can come from sex. This can come from shopping. It can even be the smell of baking cookies, right? You know what I mean? Like in the cartoons, you're following it. That's all that dopamine, ooh, that looks like a good reward. Swedish pharmacologist and neuroscientist Arvid Carlsson actually won the Nobel Prize in 2000 for his research on dopamine, showing its importance in brain function. He helped show that the neurotransmitter is heavily involved in the motor system. Did you know that when the brain fails to produce enough dopamine, it can result in Parkinson's disease? The primary treatment for Parkinson's disease is a drug called L-Dopa, which spurs the production of dopamine, right? Dopamine has also been implicated in schizophrenia and ADHD, the brain systems underlining these conditions, as well as substance abuse disorders, right? It's very, very complex. Dopamine is easily oxidized, so foods that are rich in antioxidants, such as fruits and vegetables, may help protect dopamine-using neurons from free radical damage. Just Side note, you learn everything new with me. So Larry is seeking that effect, right? He's seeking that dopamine effect by using meth, right? Now, when the neurons in the region and at the base of the brain produce dopamine, it occurs basically in two-step process, right? First, the amino acid tyrosine is converted into another amino acid called L-DOPA, like the medication for Parkinson's disease. Then L-DOPA undergoes another change with enzymes turning it into dopamine. As a side note, for those who may have low levels of dopamine, maybe you have ADHD, maybe you're just looking for other ways to like build it up in your system, right? And you're like, ooh, I feel like my dopamine might be kind of low. Remember that, because dopamine is made from tyrosine, and adding more of those amino acids from food could potentially boost your dopamine levels in the brain. Studies have shown that a diet rich in tyrosine also may improve memory and mental performance as well. So try some chicken, try some soy milk, bananas, avocados, oh my god, some sesame seeds, yogurt, and my personal favorite, pumpkin seeds. I eat everything on that list except for I eat chicken, but I just don't eat it very much. I'm not crazy about it. I will destroy some seafood though. But enough with the random science class, right? So let's go back to methamphetamine. This creates a temporary feeling of euphoria, right? But due to drug abuse creating irregularly large amounts of dopamine, it creates completely alters basically the brain's functions, right? The brain begins to repeat the need for the abnormal large doses of dopamine, right? So dopamine is not stored. It's not stored in the body, right? So when the levels drop, it causes the brain to become overstimulated, looking for a stimulant, like, I need some more of that stuff, right? So over time, continued use of meth abuse will severely damage dopamine and serotonin neurons, which does affect how a person feels, acts, and thinks. Severe damage to these neurons mean a user will experience depression, hallucinations, and paranoia, like the paranoid beliefs that led Larry to do what he will do on July 9th of 2022. Now, prior to July 9th, 2022, Larry and Jimmy apparently had gotten into an argument about Bigfoot. I'm assuming Jimmy probably wasn't a believer. Larry was just like, no, he's out there, right? He's like, I know it. Either way, early July, they continued to make plans to head out into the outdoors. Larry and Jimmy decided they were going to go noodling in the South Canadian River, which for those who may not know what noodling is, it is the art of trying to catch fish with your bare hands, right? They were in the river on July 8th, 2022. Somewhat an okay day, but by July 9th, 2022, Larry would get into an argument with Jimmy about Bigfoot again. Now, Larry got it into his head at some point that Jimmy was essentially working for Bigfoot to feed Larry to him. I'll repeat that again. Larry believes Jimmy was going to feed him to Bigfoot. For those who may not know who Bigfoot is also referred to as Sasquatch, and is supposed to be a large, hairy, humanoid, right, creature believed by some people to exist in the northwestern United States and western Canada. It seems to represent the North American counterpart of the Himalayan regions, the mythical monster, the abominable snowman and the Yeti. The British explorer David Thompson is sometimes credited with the first discovery in 1811 of a set of Sasquatch footprints, and hundreds of alleged prints have been actually adduced since then. Visual sightings and even alleged photographs and filming, notably the Roger Patterson at Bluff Creek in California in 1967, have also contributed to the legend, though none of the purported evidence has been completely verified. If you're curious about more, then Google Bigfoot sightings. There's plenty on YouTube. I know there's plenty. And there's even some of the National Geographic, documentary. I mean, they got them all over the place. You can find him. I guess except in real life, right? So, whatever. This is where the meth feeds into his paranoia, particularly about that, because he had a deep-seated fear about Bigfoot, right? And during their physical altercation, Jimmy would unfortunately be struck in the head, strangled, and then drowned in the river. Larry would be so freaked out that he would run home to his daughter without her future father-in-law and tell her a panicked story of what happened. His daughter would call law enforcement immediately, and they would describe Larry as frantic, right? And he's talking about how Jimmy was trying to feed him to Bigfoot, and he even told the same story to Jimmy's son, who's also his daughter's boyfriend. Larry would also mention firing 2 shots from a pistol as well. Larry would fully cooperate with officers, right, and make a full confession. He even drew a map for the investigators on where to find Jimmy's body. After 24 hours of searching through the woods, they would find Jimmy's remains. While the officers were talking to him, they stated that Larry just seemed like he was under the influence of something, like while he was being questioned. He also couldn't sit still. He was like very fidgety. Larry was not subjected to any drug tests, which seems like that would be incredibly important to know, right? Officially, we can only speculate that it was meth due to his past, right? Because he was already arrested for bringing it into jail, even though no blood tests were performed. The drug test is a big miss because the effects of meth can last between 8 to 24 hours and still be detected for up to 72 hours in the urine and 90 days in the hair. I think it's important to know the potency, like how much did he take, like what was going on, in order to truly paint a full picture, right? Research suggests that half-life of meth is about 12 to 34 hours. However, a person will still feel the effects of the drug anywhere from 8 to 24 hours after use, right? So for people who use large amounts of meth, the drug can stay in their blood for up to 10 days in their blood, which means any drug test administered will still show positive. There was still time to complete the test, and it was not completed when it should have been. Meth does not excuse their actions, but it does provide answers for the law for Larry and Jimmy's loved ones, right? Because they were kind of like becoming a family. Remember, these guys weren't just like friends and this and that. I mean, their kids were dating, right? And they were boyfriend and girlfriend. They developed into a serious relationship, which could have led into marriage, which has got to be a very awkward thing for their relationship now. And just as a side note, did you guys know that in 2018, it was estimated that 1.9 million Americans aged as young as 12 and older had used methamphetamine? He was being held at Pontotoc, I think I said that right, County Detention Facility until his court date, like July 26, 2022. But a deeper investigation obviously has to be done, because even though he did confess, they still need to paint the picture of what he's saying is actually true. As a side sabesque kind of moment about Oklahoma, State Representative Justin Humphrey established a Bigfoot hunting season, which was primarily intended to draw tourists to southeast Oklahoma and not to really bag the fabled creature. It's called the Humphreys House Bill 1648 that would direct the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation to establish the annual dates of a Bigfoot season and create any necessary specific hunting licenses and fees. Humphrey said he would like to see a $25,000 bounty for the live capture of a Bigfoot. Let's say if Bigfoot's really out there, I don't think $25,000 is enough. I feel like you should lean towards $75,000. You may get some more traffic and the tourism that you were hoping to receive. Just saying. Anyways, if you know anyone who is using meth, it is not anyone's place to judge them, but rather try to find a way to help them. At some point, the drug will destroy the neurons, right, for the dopamine and serotonin. It will alter their brain in such a drastic way that makes them very dangerous to those around them. Be sure to contact SAMHSA National Helpline. That is 1-800-662-4357. I'll repeat that again, 1-800-662-4357, which is also known as the Treatment Referral Routing Service Line. You can also call 1-800-487-4889, which is a free, confidential 24 hours a day, 365 days a year kind of line for information for individuals, family members facing mental and or substance abuse disorders. Or you can also visit the website samhsa.gov. This is a sad case because they were supposed to go, fishing, have a little bit of fun, and they went from having fun to Larry being overwhelmed by his fear for Bigfoot, right? He just had this, intense fear, and that fear was enough for him to think, Jimmy's going to feed me to him. That means he would have done this. He would have probably killed anyone that was standing next to him. And one of the things is that, like, when people take drugs, because when you look at the two of them, you're kind of like wondering, like, how did one take the other? When people are really high, right, just all the wrong shit, they don't feel anything. Like, for example, with opioids, the reason why people who are on opioids tend to not go down is because the chemical receptors that they have, that the receptors in your body that tell you, like, hey, that hurts, opioids will cover it, right? Which is why you would give someone Narcan, right? And because Narcan actually removes it temporarily. For each person, it's different. It could be between 30 minutes to like an hour-ish, or maybe even 2, depending on the person. That means that the person can feel again. So it's very difficult when you're trying to deal with someone who literally can't feel anything. They cannot feel you hitting them or fighting back. They can't feel it because in their head, they are so fixated on what they are doing that they're like, no, this person is out to get me. This person's going to do this. This person's going to do that. Like, that's where their head is at, and that's where it gets incredibly difficult. People who do struggle with drugs genuinely really do need to be assisted, and to the best of the degree that you can assist them. And of course, always try to get them some sort of rehab, because you can never reason with someone like that, right? You can't reason with them. I'm not into weed or anything like that, but like, it's a little bit different when I deal with people. I used to work at a rehab inside of a hospital, so dealing with someone who may have smoked weed is a different story, because like, some people can handle their shit and some people cannot. I knew someone who had smoked weed, and it was a gateway drug for them. They went from like weed to like trying cocaine, and then they were like, hey, let's do some ecstasy. And I'm like, you have a problem. This is very serious. And unfortunately, I think Larry was just one of those people where it was just going to keep graduating until it eventually turned to something very serious. The last case that I had dealt with was actually Shabusiness, with the loss of Shad Rock Tharian, where they were having sex. They normally had their sex. It was their thing to like choke during sex. That was their thing. But because they also mixed meth into it and some other drugs, she was on a whole other different level, and she completely destroyed this man's body. Like, the shit that she did, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch my episode. But like, the shit that she did is because of how high she was and on the different drugs. Your brain truly is like rewired. And so when I was talking about the dopamine, it's almost like you have a cup, right? And you've been filling your little cup up. You're like, all right, got my little 8 ounces, pour my little 8 ounces, and that's my dopamine level, right? And then it evaporates, and you're like, ooh, I need more dopamine. And you put your little 8 ounces. When you take something like meth, what ends up happening is like, you're taking an 8-ounce cup and you're pouring a bucket into that cup, right? So the bucket of dopamine now puts a hole in that cup, and now there's a consistent deficit, right? So you just have to keep trying to fill it up, because only for a second it feels full, and then it just depletes, right? So now we have this never-ending circle, to a point eventually you start to break down the cup, because it's just not working anymore, and it's not really going to hold it. And it's a sad case, because I can't imagine being the daughter with your boyfriend while you're kind of just discovering, like, oh, so my dad murdered your dad because he was high. We're gonna call the cops. Like, that's got to be incredibly awkward, right? Like, so not only did he destroy this man's life, not only did he hurt this entire family, but he also destroyed this relationship also at the same time, all because of drugs. If you know someone, like, again, who's struggling with it, they really think that this is the route, and I know you're going to think, like, well, I'm trying to reason with them. You can't, because their brain is being rewired, right? It's completely being rewired. So reasoning with them, it becomes a little bit difficult. The only thing I can suggest is maybe talking to them, letting them know how it's affecting you, how it's affecting their life, and then maybe just show them the steps, like, hey, I found a place that I think can really help you, and I think this would be really great, blah, blah, blah. See how that can work. If not, I don't know. I don't work for a SAM HSA, but please reach out to them if you know someone who could really use that assistance. Stay safe, and if you know anyone who's taking meth, be mindful of what you do around them, because you don't know what can actually trigger them. And that's it. That's for today's episode. I actually know that I kept it kind of short. I couldn't find too much information about Larry except for that previous arrest, which, by the way, that's a ballsy thing to do. Like, to be arrested for being publicly intoxicated And then, they ask you, like, hey, you have anything else on you? Because they want to make sure they don't put you in there with anything. And then you're sitting in jail, and then they just like, is he doing meth? Yo, he's got meth in there. Like, you know what I mean? To a certain degree, that's super ballsy, but, man, it's a hell of a drug. It's a hell of a drug. And I'm so sorry for the loved ones who are, like, caught in this crazy mess from last year. But yeah, you see someone's having an issue, they can't handle their liquor, they can't handle taking this or taking that, get them the help that they need. All right, stay safe, everyone. That's it. Bye.